Hello and welcome to Talking Bottom. I'm Matt Brooks.
I'm Paul Tanter.
And I'm Ange Pearson.
And welcome to Talking Bottom, the podcast where we talk about every episode of Bottom, and even when we've run out of episodes, we milk it even longer and talk about random things about Bottom. This episode, we're going to be talking about the costumes, which is something I'm very fascinated with the show Bottom. When I think of Bottom, I really do think of the brown suit and the jeans, shirt, tie combo of, well, you know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Do you think about that a lot when you're alone in the house?
Yeah.
The show's very identifiable for those things, isn't it? You
Sure.
can have that silhouette that we even use in our logo, and you recognise the clothes instantly.
Absolutely. Now, costume is character. It's clues about the way people live. Loads of little intricate, small details that kind of go into your subconscious, but inform the world that these people live in. And it's all subtext. It can be done very haphazard and shit, or it can be done expertly well. Yeah, we approached Linda Wood, the costume designer of series 1 and 2, to talk about her work on the show, and she's not interested in coming in this podcast because she wants to do her own book or something about it. We're doing a book about Bottom. It feels like we could cross-promote each other, but she's free to do what she wants. She is on another podcast, though, from Tailors with Love. Yeah, it's worth a listen. Episode 102. Where she briefly touches the surface on Bottom, where she goes on about...
She touches cloth.
She talks about the cloth used, the fabrics, and like Eddie's suit was his own. He brought it from his own wardrobe. She insists it's from... She thinks it's from a charity shop or something because it was quite an old suit that was built to last.
Aid actually found that and brought it in.
And they informed the look with her, so they had a very strong idea from the beginning. He brought the suit, but she did the tie, the belt, the shoes.
What about the hat? Did she mention that?
She bought the hat, yeah. The hat's her work.
Because the hat...
Silhouette.
His brown suit is very identifiable as Eddie, isn't it? But the hat is really what tops it off, as you say, the silhouette.
It's almost a pun, isn't it? The hat tops it off. Yeah.
The hat does top it off. It's a trilby hat, isn't it, that Eddie wears?
Is it?
I think it is. I think it's a trilby. It's not a bowler because they're more rounded. I think we talked about this previously when he first comes in, isn't it, and throws it on the floor.
So their costumes kind of tie in with what we've kind of covered in our previous episode last week on class.
Yeah, it shows that what they aspire to, the idea that they put on a shirt and tie every day but have nowhere to go. That's a very, like, an old school British thing. A lot of old fellas would wear a suit down the pub every day. I'm sort of half quoting Royal Family there when Ralph Little, is that who it is?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it was going along, why some, like, Grandad always used to wear a suit, didn't he? It's like, oh yeah, some people are like that. Why don't you? Me? I'm with it. Yeah. Says Jim Royal in his shitty jeans. And
do you think it also feeds into the fact that they can't afford more clothes though as well? So again,
you only own one shirt. They mention.
This is that thing that we kind of talked about last week of often aristocracy will only have one or two sets of clothes, but they're very quality ones and they wear them all the time. So, for instance, Eddie and Richie's overcoats look very well made and they wear them lots.
Yeah.
You get the impression they've had them for years, but they serve them very well. And in the same way, their wardrobe, it tends to be the same thing each time, mainly so their characters are identifiable, and so...
Very lived in it looks as well, doesn't it? Yeah. Nothing looks new. The pants are something that got specially made for the show.
The Y-fronts?
The Y-fronts, Richie's pants, because they come up to his chest bone, essentially. It's like, no, need bigger. Like, we'll have to make them. And like ran them through like tea and stuff, with all the stains and stuff on them.
Even amongst the grime and grot in which they live, both of them have very clean costumes, don't they? Richie's shirt is always totally crisp white. I know that we have the comedy of dirty underwear, but neither of them ever wear dirty clothes, do they?
They're not visibly dirty, no, but then when Spudgun and Hedgehog come in, they're visibly dirty, aren't they? So yeah, you're right. They're always actually, you get the feeling that Richie's doing his chores as the housewife, isn't he? He is actually doing the laundry and getting the ironing out, even for the underwear.
Well, also the laundry you see hanging up around the flat, and I noticed this more in Contest, the pilot episode, you see a lot of laundry hanging up to dry, but again, it's all clean. There's nothing dirty there. The shirts aren't sort of yellowed and sweaty. All of the dirt tends to come from the underpants.
Yeah, I think the pants are just, they're tea stained as such, just because I would imagine they're closer to the filth or something, you know.
Well, I mean, Richie talks about gluing his underwear on, doesn't he? Like, it's almost in this. It's not almost. It's in the script, isn't it? Just how vile they are when it comes to, their elastic's gone, so they've glued them on. You mentioned their silhouettes are so distinctive. Like, I was just going to say they're so distinctive that they use it in the end credits, don't they? That even without their coat on, but it's the glasses on Eddie, I think, isn't it? And the bald head, and then Richie's hair. And just obviously the way Rick and Aid move is so very in character, isn't it? But you can tell from the outline of their costumes like exactly who they are. And that is the true mark of any great comedy character. You should be able to, from their silhouette, know exactly who they are.
Yeah. In Bottom Live, when you see in between there's no better physical comedy, you see their dressing rooms and you see, what do you see?
The camera moves into Eddie's room and you see a pair of glasses and a gun. The camera moves into Richie's room and you see a pair of underpants.
Yes. Yeah. Costume. Do you think the glasses were aids? The glasses, I don't know if they're his actual frames or something. I think they're maybe a bit thicker than he actually wore at the time.
Yeah, I think they've been made or got especially to show Eddie off, don't you? I don't think they're aids. I think that's all part of the characterisation of Eddie.
It's very identifiably Eddie, isn't it? Do you think that's why in Guest House Paradiso, Eddie feels like Eddie, but Richie doesn't really feel like Richie because he's not dressed the exact same way?
He's got the cardi makes him very different, doesn't it? Even though he's still wearing a shirt and tie and
jeans, is he?
I think he's in jeans, or is he in trousers?
Are these trousers in that? I'd have to double check.
The brown trousers, because we do see Richie in brown trousers and obviously the braces, don't we?
Yes.
When he's dressed up
for Christmas and stuff.
Yeah, and is that what he's wearing when he's going out in Digger as well?
Yeah.
No,
in Smells, first one.
That's what he's wearing. He's going out in Smells as well.
Richie's going out clothes tend to be his brown trousers and braces. If he's at home, he's in his jeans and his white shirt tucked into it, but always with the tie pin as well. He's always got his tie.
The tie pin is again saying it's little details, things like that. He maybe inherited this tie pin, or he's seen people wear it. It's shorthand, isn't it? You see someone in a suit, you have a idea about them before they open their mouth, and then subvert that.
Like, costume is a very important thing for characters. Even going back to things like Charlie Chaplin, his suit, his hat, the boots that he had that were never done up, it was always a very important part of the character. And often having things exaggerated and overemphasized is something that people use for character. So there's something with Richie we don't see initially, but as time goes on, his pants gradually keep coming up further and further like an old man.
And the belt loops thing as well.
So the belt loop, initially you don't have that, but I know we talked about that before. We theorised that possibly he keeps that front belt out of the jeans loop so he can easily get his hand down his pants for a furtive jostle. And I think those little character things are a bit like Chaplin having undone boots and an oversized suit and a hat that's at a weird angle.
Absolutely, and even if it isn't that he wants, I think we're right that it is that he wants to be able to get a hold of his gonads. But also, it's just that kind of haphazard, unruly kind of way of getting dressed as well, isn't it? I just like miss a belt loop. Oh well, never mind.
In reality, as well, it stands out more. Having the belt up there, it draws more attention to the pants being up.
Absolutely, and I think it is definitely so he can get a feel of himself whenever Eddie's out the room, or maybe when Eddie's in the room. Who knows?
What about Eddie's shoes? It's something that never draw proper attention to. Have you ever see them? They're basically weird boots that are almost high heels.
I think we've mentioned this in one episode. They look like the exact same style, although a different colour, to the shoes that Rick wears in Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a slight heel. It's not a huge heel, is it? It's
but
not
it is
a platform.
But it is a heel.
Yeah.
And it's weird, and it's on the back, not the whole thing, so not like a platform shoe. He, I think, got them for a charity shop as well. I think he may have provided that. Linda, come on the podcast and explain. You could answer all these.
Because Richie's always got his brown sort of slip-on leather shoes, hasn't he?
I know that he's got very nice woolen socks that when he tries to wake Eddie up and he waves his foot over him. Those socks look really warm and comfortable.
So let's go through a few of the costumes that stand out. We've already kind of gone over their go-to, like vanilla outfits, whatever you want to call them.
I mean, I think I know what ones you're going to go to first.
Okay, so I think the very next thing that loads of people will think of is Halloween costumes.
Yeah, it's something that people often copy at Halloween and at fancy dress pies because it's a very diverse one. It's funny and it's something you can actually generally get hold of yourself.
And it's a double act thing. It's a good couple costume to go at,
But weirdly, they have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
But if you would just a banana or something, you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't be like, oh, you're Eddie. You just, what's going on there?
I think people like them when they're out with a friend because you can say something about yourself based on your choice. So if it's a man and a woman, the woman can choose to do the sexy tights thing, but often it's quite funny to see the woman dressed as a banana and the guy dressed in the tights.
My favourite detail with the costumes of people doing that dress up is the tights that they choose to wear for Richie, because he shits himself 3 times. So if we're in the red tights, it doesn't really draw attention to it. But if you have the green ones or the see-through ones, it means you've shit yourself. So it's a nice detail. Like any drawings of it, I always think have the green ones on. So then,
what do you think was the motivation though for Eddie and Richie to be wearing those costumes though? Like so when it was like, right, we're going to do the terror episode. Why has Eddie chosen the banana? Why is Richie going as a horny devil?
I think Richie's motivation is that they saw the kids dressed in similar things earlier when they came to the house, didn't they?
Eddie saw the devils. Richie didn't see the devils, did he?
Yeah, but I think you're being a bit too logical there. It's that the kids were seen in devil outfits trick or treating. Ergo, Richie and Eddie think trick or treating will make them money, and the kids dressed as devils. Therefore, when Richie and Eddie went to get costumes, they probably both wanted to get devil costumes. However, there's only one costume left, so therefore the second person has to get something else from the costume shop. What's left? A banana outfit.
Because literally on Halloween they go, isn't it? So it makes sense that the costumes would be like sold out and stuff. But
do you think the banana's meant to be in any way phallic though?
I don't know. It's meant to be a pumpkin, but like they've run out of pumpkin, so there's a banana. But like,
it's just obviously the banana in comedy, slipping on a banana skin, all that kind of. It's an image in comedy that actually you respond to it, don't you? The image of a banana. So the giant banana thing, I think, was definitely very purposeful because it is so just
it's comedic,
memorable.
It's synonymous with comedy. You're right.
It's a funny image and a funny word,
and it does look a little bit like he's a giant penis, right? Or is that my mind that's coming out?
Maybe
that's your mind.
But then Richie's gone for the easiest costume, I think, which is definitely, as you say, the kids are dressed. It's a kiddie one, isn't it? Really, like putting on like little horns and tights
and a cape, and that's it. Because he's got his shirt and tie on, and so Eddie has his full suit on underneath the banana outfit.
And, when you think about what you're thinking for Halloween, what's kind of devilish. Like Richie's talked before, hasn't he, about being fiendish and devilish. And I think that just speaks to Richie more so than I don't think Eddie's thought about it beyond the fact that, as you say, he wanted to be a pumpkin, which obviously makes sense for Halloween. But then he's had to come out with a banana, which makes absolutely no sense. It's an absurd image, isn't it? Richie and Eddie, we talked about their outlandish look, and the absurd image of a banana is definitely memorable. And that's why, of course, it lives on, because it's so strange that it's only one episode, isn't it, of Bottom in Series 3, and it's so recognisable. I mean, there was it the Jim or Paint It thing recently, and that's the costumes that they're in at the back. They did like a 90s group, lots and lots of different 90s things, and you've got Richie and Eddie in the banana and the Halloween.
Jim or Paint It has done 2 things to my mind that have involved Bottom. One is them fighting the Legion of Doom when they're in their normal costumes, but the other one is the representation of the 90s, where you have things like Red Dwarf and other things, and they are in those costumes, and I think that's probably to make them stand out from the group. Cause
2 guys in a shirt and tie isn't going to stand out.
Also, they're fighting the Legion of Doom in their pants, not their normal costume.
Well, they're not fighting them in their Halloween costumes.
Yeah, you're right. The pants are very Bottom costumey thing as well. Just the big Y fronts. Like, if you held up a pair of Y fronts, showed them to someone in their 30s, like, what's this make you think of? A lot of people would say Bottom. Let's talk about some of the supporting characters' costumes. I think first ones we need to go to are Spud Gunn and Dave Hedgehog.
Very distinctive. Spud Gunn has a lot of things that are quite recognisable on their own. He's got his sort of vesty, leather, bomber jackety, body warmery type thing. He's got a lot of badges on, like SO and things sewn onto it. And
it's almost like a Hell's Angels jacket or something, isn't it? But like a really crap one. It's not like he's been part of that, but it's like almost teenage, isn't it? You've got a leather jacket you're going to sew your badges on. And then he's got a cardi on, hasn't he? Underneath that?
For warmth.
Yeah, and then underneath that, he's got a shirt on, hasn't he?
And you see it with all the layers. It makes me think of Lister a little bit, that jacket with all the badges.
But he looks so warm, doesn't he? Yeah, you're right. It is a bit like Lister. But he looks so warm and he's so hot and greasy and sweaty. It's like, take your jacket off, mate. Like, you'd probably be a bit cooler.
His hair's, so that's not costume, it's makeup, but the two go very hand in hand.
It's all part of the outline, though, isn't it? That silhouette for
like his comb over type thing, like basically where his fringe is like not quite centre parted as such, and it's you've got like the one greasy strand over in a weird way. It's such a nice character detail.
When we think of Spud Gun, as you say, if you imagine his silhouette, we do imagine the big hair. So in the Christmas episode, when he's had a haircut and his beard's shorter, he looks like the sort of younger version of Spud Gun, doesn't he? It's like Spud Gun as a student, and then later in the other ones, he feels like the proper Spud Gun, who's buried under a shitload of hair like Captain Caveman.
Yeah,
Do you
cousin
think
it.
Spud Gun or Hedgehog? Does Spud Gun have a beard?
They both
Yeah.
do.
I always thought Spud Gun was quite clean shaven, and obviously Hedgehog's always quite
Well, look at
heavily stubbled.
Look at the Terror episode. He's bearded up big time there.
I'm picturing it like the first time we meet them.
Hedgehogs.
He's probably
in
got a
suit,
lot of
hasn't
stubble, actually. Yeah.
You know what? I think he appears 3 times. The first time he's got long, lank hair and bit of stubble, but no beard. Second time is Holy. He's got short hair and still only stubble. But the third time is Terror, and that's when he's in full-on beardy and big hair, and that's the thing I picture him as.
That's weird because
You've
I
got
don't.
Doe
I
as
think
well.
I think of early Spud Gun.
Okay.
They're in Doe as well. They appear 4 times.
Yeah, because that's series 3, like Terror. He's got the same big beard and big hair look.
So Hedgehog, more like Richie and Eddie, really, just a
Very
suit.
bedraggled, isn't he? Though,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's
Old suit, looks dusty and worn in, and
And is that like a little V-neck cardi or jumper he's got on underneath
Over
as
the
well?
shirt, yeah. It is that thing, like you said, Matt, of the older guy who who puts on a suit to go to the pub, but also a lot of older gents of a certain generation, when they got laid off from the jobs they've been doing for 30 years and they were forced to sign on for the first time, they would all put on their suits to go down the dole office because they thought it was the thing to do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think Frank Skinner wrote about this in his autobiography, his first one, how you'd see the first time they come along, they'd be wearing their suit and they'd be all hopeful and thinking they're going to get a job. And you can see gradually over time, the suit gets a bit more downtrodden and crumpled, and so do they. And eventually they just look beaten. And then eventually that's the suit that they wear to the pub every day, and it stinks of cigarette ash, and maybe you've got some burns up one of the arms because they're always smoking in it. And
Absolutely.
eventually...
It's quite a tragic figure in, like, you know, obviously harking back to the class thing that we talked about last week. Like when you watch Steptoe and Son, if they're ever going out, you know, Albert will put on his it's a bowler hat and his overcoat,
Right.
and there's like, you know, there's a tear in the top of the coat, and it's always his outfit that he's seen in whenever they go outdoors.
Yeah.
Whereas around the flat, he's always in his like holy old cardi and shirt and everything. But similarly, Harold is always in a shirt, isn't he? Pretty much, even though when he's on the cart, like he'll have like his big boots on, but it's always his work clothes pretty much, unless he's going out to woo a lady, of course, in which case he will get dressed up, and then obviously Albert will always foil his plans in some way or another. And it's in a lot of other sitcoms. Have you had a think about other silhouettes of your favourite kind of comedy characters? Because when you think of, say, Basil Fawlty, he's always in a suit, isn't he?
Yeah.
The same suit.
Is he? Well, the only other thing you would see him in is pajamas, I guess. One episode.
That's true. That's true.
Pyjamas are also a theme you see through Bottom quite a bit. Often with Richie, though, you do see Eddie in it as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that idea of when you go to bed, you put on your full pajamas on your own is quite a really, really
It's an
thought through thing,
old-fashioned
isn't it?
thing, isn't it? It's again shorthand. Oh, it's night time. They're going to bed.
Yeah, because they can't have them naked in bed, obviously, for when they're filming it. But like, it is that old-fashioned idea. Because again, like, you know, you see Albert Steptoe in pajamas all the time,
It's very Dickens, I think, as well. Like
Yeah.
the
Creeping
creeping
nightgown
to
thing.
bed, holding a candle almost,
Yeah.
isn't it, with a
So-
nightcap on.
But thinking about your silhouette question, the first thing that came to mind there was I imagine the 4 different Blackadders, and they're often defined by you've got the hat for the captain in the army, you've got the wide ruff of the neck for one of the periods.
History,
I don't even know which one. The
history
second one.
lends itself,
Yeah.
doesn't it, to Blackadder so well for the costume. I mean, it's such a perfect situation to be
Yeah.
able to do those cut out characters. Interestingly, Baldrick is always just really grubby, no matter what, isn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, Blackadder's silhouettes are amazing, aren't they? When you think about the wigs, and as you say, in 2 with the ruff,
Yeah, what a show
and
for
in
costumes,
4,
though.
of course,
Yeah.
the World War One costume.
For some comedy characters, the costume can really come to define them in a very recognisable way. So if you look at Alan Partridge, you know instantly the kind of thing he's going to be wearing, especially if he's doing something
Green
on-
blazer, I'd think.
Yeah, especially with his
That's
sort of
the classic, isn't it?
yeah, with like a crest on it.
Yeah.
Or if you think of David Brent, now that's a very simple. It's a shirt and a tie, but if you're holding the tie, then you know it's David Brent. But then you get other characters. If I said the characters from Peep Show, there's not really anything there that defines them, is there? For some comedy characters, there's something that defines them.
Mark's always pretty much in a suit, unless obviously he was going to Rainbow Rhythms. He looks so out of place there, doesn't he? In like a polo kind of shirt to be able to dance.
He tries to dress down like he wears the leather jacket with lapels.
Yeah,
and then you look like a Nazi.
Jeremy's sort of always in a t-shirt, isn't he?
They auctioned off some of his t-shirts for something, and it's weird. Like you'd see the t-shirts, like yes, that does look like a Jeremy outfit.
Yeah, so you're right. They're not quite as bold in outline, perhaps, and I think the hair kind of helps with Mitchell and Webb, doesn't it? Because that hair is just so David Mitchell. Webb, I suppose, was losing a little bit of his hair, wasn't he? Bless him. But like again, you can kind of just the outline of their faces is more what you imagine rather than the silhouette.
Yeah, maybe.
The episode, series 4, episode 1, when Mark goes off to meet Sophie's parents and she takes him shopping first, and then he comes back and he's wearing what Jeremy's wearing.
And when he's grown the goatee.
Yeah, he looks so horrible. Yeah, it's so unflattering, that goatee. That's the point, obviously. And also, Sophie's choice in clothes for a guy is fucking terrible.
I know.
So it's Trevor now. This looks good.
That is so funny, because that's where they're using costume for the laughs, though, isn't it? Because I always love that thought from Mark. It's like a zip here, a swastika there. Who the hell cares? Like, it's so funny.
Another point, the first time we see Hedgehog and Spudgun, they look like shit. That's them dressed up because they think they're going to a party.
Yeah, wearing
that's
the birds.
That's them making an effort.
Well, that's it. It's almost as if Spudgun's like kind of greased his hair on purpose, isn't it? Do you think that's a gel rather than pure grease, or do you think he's just run a comb through it?
Well, I think practically, like the costume-wise, that's obviously some sort of like gel. They didn't say don't shower for a few days, please, Stephen.
But character-wise, it is grease.
I think so.
Yeah. Rich and Eddie have occasionally dressed up in other outfits, usually when they're trying to embody some kind of other role. So the thing that comes to mind here briefly is Richie turns his coat inside out when he wants it to be a smoking jacket.
Sure, but the main Oscar Wilde sort of thing, right? Yeah.
But the main thing that comes to mind is when he's trying to seduce Lady Natasha.
Yeah.
He gets his very nice suede-looking jacket,
which
I think
it's green velvet jacket. That was Linda Wood mentions this in the podcast. That's from BBC Storehouse thing. That was one thing that they kind of were just going through, like, this. So when he's dressed up as Lord Kidderminster, right?
the Duke of
Kidderminster. That we've said this previously on the episode on Digger. That could be Doctor Who.
It's him as Doctor Who, yeah. And now in that one as well, Eddie also takes on another costume, that of the butler.
The bow tie, I think, a really good detail. There's obviously it's
properly.
like a knot. It's just like written, like the loops are like, yeah, that'll do.
Neither of them know how to tie it properly, yet Richie hopes that sheer hope and determination will keep it aloft.
Yeah, they literally hold it up. No, okay, and then give up.
Now, Natasha is obviously dressed very nicely in that episode. There's not many female characters in Bottom. Obviously, Natasha is one of the main ones that we remember, and she comes in and she does sort of embody that slightly aristocratic, is it a ball gown?
It is definitely a ball gown that she's wearing. I mean, she's obviously got the gloves. She's wearing everything that I think that she owns that's worth any money, right? That's the idea with her.
I always thought she was on the take as well when she was a con woman first time watching it.
Oh, she is, yeah, definitely.
Well, she does say that all my family's impoverished forever. Yeah,
she's after Eddie, if he's got money, if anything should happen to Richie and all that. But her costume is amazing, and obviously, I mean, as a lady watching it, like even my eyes are drawn to her amazing breasts.
Oh yeah, her cleavage looks amazing.
She looks great. If Richie was to have a sort of dream woman appear at the door, I know she might be a bit more kind of scantily clad, but wow, what a vision Helen Lederer is in that costume. I've always loved their earrings as well.
Like chandelier type, so like Pat Butcher could have been wearing them.
They're amazing. So it's that thing of I presume that was from the BBC department of various costumes. We'd love to get Linda on and ask her about whether, Rick and Ade had a say in what Lady Natasha would turn up in, because of course she is a lady.
Her earrings are similar to Mrs. Potato's, only Mrs. Potato goes to the total other end of the spectrum. Obviously her character, it's inferred that she's a very aged prostitute.
Because of the leopard skin, right?
Leopard skin, pink skirt.
Fur coat.
Yeah. So it's sort of leopard fur coat, pink skirt, tights, her hair's dyed red, she's got the makeup on her face plastered on, gold earrings, little plastic bracelet. It's the sort of Pat Butcher look, isn't it?
Everything you expect from a madame, from a brothel.
Yeah. But I think Mrs. Potato is the only what I would call working class female character you see in there. Unless you count the woman who comes collecting for the needy, everyone else who's female tends to be quite well spoken and well to do.
They're usually in a working role, aren't they? I mean, you've got the nurse behind the desk, and then
Brenda the ball gazer,
and then you've got Brenda, of course.
Oh man,
what a vision!
I mean, her costume in that is just fucking awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, Liz Smith like so suited to that role, wasn't she? She did it so well. I'm trying to think of the other female. So obviously there's Lily Lineker. You're right. She's very bit rough around the edges, but she's scrubbed up well, isn't she?
So they've obviously gone for a very stylized look with her. She's got an all-encompassing single color for the entire outfit, but it's quite bright. She's got big shoulder pads, and her hair kind of gives her a big. She almost feels a bit 80s, even though that.
I think she is. Yeah, she's like a throwback from the 80s. That idea of the shoulder pads and the empowered businesswoman, isn't it? Yeah. She's in an amazing suit.
Now it's time for a quick word from our sponsors.
Now, finally, in its 30th anniversary year, there's a book about Bottom. From the creators of the hugely popular podcast of the same name that regularly tops the iTunes charts and garners numerous 5-star reviews, Talking Bottom is a guide to the cult sitcom for everyone, from the new viewer to the devoted fan. It's written by 3 obsessives who grew up watching the show and have no social lives. As well as guiding you through the TV episodes, live shows and film, we'll go behind the scenes, finding out how it was commissioned and what it was like to make, talking to the people who made it, including director Ed Bye. The book will exclusively examine first draft scripts from the TV episodes and find out how it was first conceived. We'll examine Rick and Aid's influences. There'll be previously unseen pictures and original artwork. And most importantly, we want you to get involved. Secure your copy via the Unbound website now and see what other exclusive perks are available for a variety of prices. And tell us what you would like to see covered in the book via the Talking Bottom social media pages.
What about Veronica?
I mean, she just sort of looks nice, doesn't she?
But is she
very
like working
90s,
class or no?
Well, she's very well spoken.
Yeah, she kind of gives me the impression of like university educated type.
She's helping out behind the bar for a bit of money, but I don't think she's going to be a barmaid for the rest of her life, is she? She's just helping out. That's a very 90s blouse combo that she's got on, isn't it? And actually, when it's Richie's birthday and they've got... No, hang on, is it? Yeah, when he goes over to her and he pulls her into the wheelchair. Oh, yeah. That's such a 90s blouse, isn't it?
The short blonde woman with a grey top. Are you talking about...
Well, at his party where he's like, that's not my leg in there, like, just tries to take her top off.
Yeah.
And then Pierce Brosnan's stunt double comes and tries to punch him, but he says...
That's right, but I'm also thinking of when Clive Mantle's in it. It smells, isn't it?
Smells when the woman from the British Empire...
That's it, yeah.
That's a more sort of salmony pink kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, she's Harriet Thorpe. She's quite well spoken and posh in that, and she's wearing something a little bit sort of like glamish. Whereas Clive Mantle has, I think it's jeans and a donkey jacket.
Yeah.
Most of the male characters that you see either in the background or on the fringes tend to be quite down at luck. They're dour. Like, look at all the extras in Parade or the people in the pub. They tend to be a lot of greys. It's quite sort of poor stuff. Occasionally you get someone along like Tight Mouth Larry who looks like an estate agent going to a wedding and they're dressed deliberately sort of over the top. Or you get someone in a uniform like a nurse or Sir Roger Cobham OBE.
Well, Harry the Bastard thing is quite a nice costume as well.
His is... there's a lot of gold, but also the hat. But the thing that I really noticed about that was the glasses, which are those sort of over-magnified ones that make your eyes look really big.
They're like bifocals or whatever, really thick. Yeah. And hasn't he got almost like a plastic PVC jacket?
Oh, did he?
I think it looks very that kind of PVC plastic that is at the time presumably seemed quite fashionable, but just looks awful now.
But
was it fashionable at the time?
Maybe in the 80s it was, but not in the 90s. I don't know.
I think they got the ensemble he was wearing quite correct there. It made him look like the spiv that he was supposed to be. The guy who will come and try and haggle you down from £500 to 2p.
And you could imagine him being mates with Del Boy.
Yeah. Absolutely, you could, yeah. I think the magnifying glasses would have a practical thing as well if he's inspecting goods. Like, this is, you can see the work in this object day, carved leg, whatever.
But it is incredible how many are just in a suit or shirt and tie, like Dickhead's in a shirt and tie, obviously Chief Inspector Grobbelaar's in a shirt and tie and a suit, isn't it? But they all have a very distinctive look.
Someone like the character called Nobby Stiles, who we know as the one-legged veteran, he of course has a very valuable leg, but he doesn't really look well dressed. He looks quite poor, doesn't he?
Looks like a homeless person, doesn't he? That so I think so. Robert Llewellyn, for anyone who's thinking
Who are we talking about?
Which character are we talking about? But yeah, the Falklands veteran.
He's not mentioned by name in the episode at all. It's just in the credits we know his name's Nobby Stiles.
That episode had Robert Llewellyn called Nobby Stiles, who was a footballer, and Chief Inspector Grobbelaar, who was also a footballer.
I'm trying to think of who else had a suit on. Oh, well, the landlord.
With
Mr.
his
Harrison.
wonderful comb over. The shop assistant's outfit, the white coats that they're both given, then, no, Eddie, you put your coat on back. I mean, that's just, as a white
It's an
thing.
important detail with costume, though, isn't it? And that is the point, isn't it? Costume brings character. Any actor who's going into a role, if you're trying to put that role on,
the characters
costume
themselves are
builds
talking
it.
about this.
Yeah.
They know, the status I'll get with putting this white coat on.
Because what you wear is how you display who you are to the world.
To
isn't
strangers, you're telling them I should be taken seriously. I've took the time to put this uniform on.
Yeah, or if
Therefore-
you're, looking very casual and you don't really care about your appearance. I mean, how many times do you hear people say you can tell everything you need to know about someone by their shoes?
Yeah.
I don't hear people say that
Have
often.
you never heard that?
Not really.
Oh, I've heard that as a thing, to be able to judge someone, look at their shoes, and you can tell exactly what their character is like. And I do think it's kind of true. Obviously, it depends whether you're in a workplace setting or, obviously you dress for the occasion, don't you?
None of us are currently wearing shoes, by the way.
I think anyone who doesn't really, take a massive amount of pride in their appearance, they're never going to have really polished leather shoes on, are they?
Sure.
Which is why it's interesting that Richie and Eddie, as we've said, they're actually in the shirt and tie, and they are in leather, quite nice boots, aren't they? Brown brogues.
It's, to me, I think that's they don't really have a sense of style. They don't know what they should be wearing, so they just... The characters,
It's
I
like
should say,
they've had them for years and they just haven't updated.
and that's what people wear. People wear these things. So what else would you wear? Their fashion sense is 20 years out of date.
I do also think it is so that you get the idea that they are on the breadline, they're in poverty, they can't afford to update their clothes, so they've got something that I think you were saying earlier, Paul, that's going to last. And back then you had one suit that lasted you and you repaired it, and you had leather shoes that were going to maybe get them resold, go down the cobblers. Would it be you'd reuse these things rather than updating them in this kind of modern way that we all do? Also, I think Rick and Aid probably wanted that so that it was quite timeless when you looked at it, in the way that Steptones sort of feels that way, even though it is definitely set in the 60s. You can kind of put them in lots of different scenarios and you won't necessarily feel that it's aged that much.
Yeah. There's something they do with costumes in Bottom, sometimes subtly and sometimes quite obviously, which is to indicate the relationship between Richie and Eddie. So sometimes Eddie comes home, as he's taking off his hat to hang it up, Richie's wearing an apron, and that sort of indicates he's the wife in the relationship doing the housework at home. And sometimes they go the whole hog and just put it out there, and they have someone dress up as a woman, which is another of the more famous images from Bottom in the episode where they go to the Marveloso Splendido Hotello.
Yes.
Eddie as a lady.
Yes, with my favourite detail of that is the lipstick drawn
Smeared.
around, not even on his lips, it's around his...
I think we said at the time it's like the pantomime dame, isn't it? It's so over the top, and then having the boobs on the wrong way and all of those kind of gags they're getting out of that costume. And then obviously Richie is sort of just doing his posh act again, isn't he? Is he just wearing a jacket again?
I think it's a bit too big for him, though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
he's wearing a suit that is so... Obviously, they've nicked the clothes out the boot. His suit is like a size or two too big.
Because Taffy, it belongs to Taffy Jones,
What
right?
we guess, yeah.
But that episode, of course, actually has them wearing a variety of things, in that once they're at the hotel, they dress as other characters. But in order to nick the car, they put tights on their head to actually perform the robbery. But the very first thing we see them in that episode is they walk in dressed in cricket garb.
Yes.
In fact, Eddie is wearing the entire team's cricket garb.
And he's got his suit on underneath that as well. It's
Has he
another
really?
thing, yeah.
Such a striking image, isn't it? Because he's got so much on him, and then obviously the stain on Richie's trousers.
It's a wonderful detail, isn't it? They don't even... No, they do draw your attention to it, masturbate enigmatically, but it's the thread's there from the beginning. As soon as it comes, it just gets a laugh. You understand what's happened. Let's talk about some of the very small characters that stand out in our memory, and maybe the costumes played a big part of that. Sex shop worker.
Yeah, I mean, he's just all in black, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got a dodgy cross earring or something, isn't he?
Like very, very just sleazy.
It's what you kind of think about with a sex shop, particularly in the 90s. It's very looked down on to even go in, and Richie's embarrassed to walk in.
Oh, I'll tell you who's dressed very sleazily in bottom. The Flasher on Wimbledon Common. Because he's hardly wearing anything.
Not got a stitch on.
Yeah, the overcoat flashing thing is such a old-timey thing that I don't think really exists anymore, because the internet is basically where flashes go now.
I don't know, like, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like, because I think we've said before that Richie's overcoat is almost like a Flasher overcoat, isn't it?
Now, that's Richie's normal overcoat, not his oversized one that he uses to wheel in trolleys of books. There's a couple of instances where Richie has, obviously for comedic effect, oversized clothes, such as that. And also, I've got a BBC camera down these trousers that for this insert are massive.
Yeah, big custody pants. That's one of the crossovers between props and costume, because it's kind of a little bit of both. They're obviously sculpted, solid pants. Who's else are we seen in pants, underwear, string vest?
Oh, Mr. Rottweiler.
Yeah.
I mean,
Seaside Postcard.
He just looks perfect, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You're right. Like, he shares a love string vest with Eddie, but you could also imagine Rottweiler having a knotted handkerchief on his head like Eddie does.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Rottweiler, of course, just answers the door in his boxers because he doesn't give a shit.
And he's been in bed,
and he's
as well,
in
right?
middle of having sex with someone, and they've come and knocked on the door. Like, well, what? That's those bastards from next door. You wouldn't put on your suit just to open the door, would you?
Talking about uniforms, of course, the gas man is a very distinctive uniform. That isn't it?
Mistakenly thought it was a overalls but stuff, but it's top and bottoms, isn't it? But they're the same colour.
Yeah, they're like a navy blue combo, aren't they, of his uniform? Was that a costume at the time, do you think, or do you think that was made up?
Oh, I think all gas men would wear like a blue boiler suit with British Gas on the front. Yeah, I think that was a fairly typical thing. I think they still do, don't they? If they work for British Gas.
I'm not sure.
I think they're just coming
That's
civvies
the
now,
daughter
really.
one for about 11 years. No, I don't know. I think they always turn up in a high-vis jacket or something now, don't they?
Okay.
Burglars.
Burglars. Well, I mean, the burglars are sort of dressed like, they're dressed like burglars or doormen for clubs.
Yeah, so just all in black, not the stripy top with a domino mask and swag, which they could have gone for at the bottom. But
I mean, one effect I do like that they do that's related to costume there is when they've got Nigel from EastEnders, they're sellotaped up.
it'll always be known as
Paul Bradley, right?
Paul Bradley. They put sellotape around his hat as though that's going to keep him there further.
Oh, yeah, it's got like is it a beanie hat?
Beanie hat.
Yeah.
Talking earlier about oversized suits, Richie does again wear an oversized suit when he's being Kilroy, where he also wears a wig. Where he looks very much like Donald Trump in that scene. But that's also the episode where, again, Eddie dresses up a bit like a woman, where they're staging their hilarious video accidents, and Eddie wears
the rollers in the hair, the non-existent
hair.
And it's like a pinny, isn't it?
It's like a pinny,
really floral.
One woman who we haven't mentioned who does look very glamorous is the woman who emerges from the fridge, who's looking forward to all the snogging and mindless drinking.
Showgirl, yeah.
Starbird, does he call her that?
Does he call her that?
Starbird?
I think he talks about his Starbird when he's looking in the empty sock in Holy, doesn't he?
Okay.
I can't seem to find the
That's
Starbird
right.
I'm looking for, whereas I think she is like part of a sort of like, stripper.
Like a magician's assistant or something, that kind of cabaret show.
Of course, that in that episode, we see several instances of Richie's wardrobe that we've not seen before. We see him hold up a pair of crotchless pants that he packs, and we see his wonderful gold bathrobe, and his very thin thong gets removed from his arse as well.
That's a prop, not costume, because we never actually see him wearing it. But
Correct.
we're not going to do an episode on props, so fuck it. We're talking about that one now.
Yeah, because it all feeds into it, doesn't it? That creating the character and where the hell he got that thong, we will never know. It's such a great callback in a way, isn't it? Because he talks about the French lying around on the beach with a bit of string up their crack in Sup, doesn't he? And then that's what he's got around his gonads in Break.
What do you guys think of Eddie's skirt/kilt in Hull?
Oh, the skirt he's got off the Scottish person who's, they're allowed to be transvestite.
Clearly a skirt, isn't it?
It's an old lady skirt, isn't it?
Yeah, it just looks very worn in. I think it's brown, isn't it? Dark brown or something,
Isn't it kind of paisley almost? The blues in it, I don't know. It's a really old fuddy-duddy kind of
But it oddly suits him.
You know how dancers often wear things that sort of drape off them, so when they move, it flows behind them and it looks better. Eddie kicking Richie in the face while wearing that skirt looks really good, just from the way it's flowing around him.
I should probably kick more people while wearing one of those skirts. It'll look fantastic. No, you're right. It all adds to that feeling of just absurdity, though, doesn't it? When that reveal happens of Eddie in that. And actually, Eddie's on the top of the Ferris wheel. That image of him dancing around with his legs out and the the skirt on. Like, it just makes it all the more ludicrous, doesn't it?
I want to give special mention to two instances of both of the main characters dressing up as something unique. One is, of course, Eddie fooling Richie into thinking he's going to die by dressing as Death.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is Richie invading Eddie's room and getting nearly hung to death
As Santa.
as Santa.
Yeah, that's a grimy looking beard, isn't it? As well, like you've got the impression he bought this like 20 years ago or
It's
whatever.
grimy, but it's also another slightly oversized costume, isn't it? You think they've probably mugged like a poor drunk Santa outside a shopping centre at some point.
Sure. Well, maybe like you're meant to pad it to make it fat, like
Yeah.
fat, but he hasn't. It's just it's baggy on him.
It's so dirty, isn't it? That beard and everything.
Blood and into the beard later. Ugh.
But kudos to Eddie's death costume as well, because
I love that.
he even built little stilts for himself.
Yeah. And
I
didn't
think
Aid
the
actually
costume
do
people
that?
probably built it for him.
Well, but the character built his own stilts, didn't he? Because he goes, "Oh God, I've broken my stilts."
It's
I
just
love
the kind
that
of,
black cloak, though. I mean, where is that like an old bed sheet, do you reckon, or what?
I
Like
don't know.
in terms of where Eddie would have got that from? It's so brilliant.
he's got that while being kicked out the house as well, so that's very resourceful.
What do you guys think of Richie's holiday outfit that he comes back in, having been away?
Oh, with the sombrero and everything.
Yeah.
Love it. And those shorts.
Yeah, that's just shortcut stuff, isn't it? Just to show very clearly, he's been to a hot country. Right, I get it. Without any dialogue needed, shorthand.
Great visual gag, though, that he comes in. It's, like singing and everything. Just the way Rick sells that. Because he's not in it for long at all, is he?
Yeah, I think probably the most attractive thing that Rick has ever worn was the rubber pants in Guest House Paradiso.
When you say attractive, what do you...
I mean, sexually attractive.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got bra as well, isn't it? Bra and pants.
I mean, he's showing a lot of flesh, certainly. But I don't know. I've always quite liked it when he drops his trousers in contest, I think.
Do you think what he wears in Guest House Paradiso is deliberately to try and make it a different character, or do they just want to get the gags out of the cardigans, or what? Why is he dressed differently there?
I think that they decided to make him a slightly different character. He's obviously in charge of the hotel, isn't he? But they're trying to make him a bit more pathetic, maybe.
Different surname, so it definitely is a different...
Yeah, the character of having a cardi on and it's yellow, isn't it? It's just kind of a bit like naff, isn't it? Essentially. But I don't know why, and it would be great to chat to someone who would know why they decided to do that with Richie and Guest House Paradiso. All I can think is that they did want to make it slightly different to Richard, because otherwise he looks very similar.
And you're right, it's Eddie because of the suit glasses combo.
Like, you can tell me better than this, but is the idea of just literally having a white shirt on and a tie not quite as striking for when you're doing film?
That's probably a very good point.
You need a better silhouette.
So often, when you're shooting something, an actor will arrive on set and the DP will go, "Can they not wear a white shirt?"
Yeah.
Just because of the lights and just because,
I wonder whether it is actually a very practical reason that they needed to have something other than just the white shirt to have Richie in.
Yeah, that's a good point. In the live shows, they're mainly in their costumes, aren't they? But
When you say live shows, so you mean 1 and 2 at first?
Well, I was
because obviously there's the Hawaiian shirt on
And
Eddie.
Prison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, which is why I was about to say they're mainly in the but.
Okay.
Let's talk about what they wear in the live shows. So we've got island stuff and we've got prison stuff, but the island stuff's quite varied, isn't it? Like they have a bit of fun with that.
Still shirt and tie though, which makes perfect sense for the character. It's hilarious that he does it going around the flat. He hasn't got a job. Not seeing another human being on a fucking desert island putting a tie on. It's
True.
insanity.
Yeah, and about how hot it would be to be having that on. But again, it's like that is why that's the only thing they own, isn't it? And like,
It's
obviously
weird,
they've been
isn't it?
shipwrecked as well. But then
But
where's he
Eddie's-
got the Hawaiian shirt from?
That's weird. That's unquestionably Eddie still. Well, that's weird, isn't it? I guess because we know it's a bottom show. He's wearing the glasses. Does he wear his hat as well? Richie's got a hat in that, isn't he? Because his hat keeps getting knocked off every time he takes a punch or something. It's nice
It's like a
added
sea
detail.
captain's hat or something.
Yeah,
isn't
like a
it?
white kind of captain's hat. You're right.
I suppose what's good about when you have characters like this who dress in this aspirational middle class way that they have done, from Albert Steptoe to Basil Fawlty to Alan Partridge to Richie and Eddie to David Brent, is that it makes it kind of timeless. The suit is always pretty much timeless, isn't it?
Absolutely. We always
Absolutely.
go back to it. If there's any divergence in suit fashions, they don't last.
Yeah.
They'll always go
I
back.
think it's definitely deliberate to have that evergreen look. Like you say, You have that timeless quality that they don't have to think about, oh, this is going to really age very quickly.
Yeah.
The extras is almost what lets Bottom down in that way, isn't it? In the pub quiz scene, you know, like that's what ages it to the 90s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we've already said, like it's like, and we didn't even mention the two women that obviously they're trying to chat up in Smells. Yeah, like their outfits are so very 90s, aren't they? That's what ages Bottom. Richie and Eddie don't.
And like if you look at something like The Young Ones, you've got references there to specific types of culture at the time, be it hippies or punks or whatever, and that ages it in a way. But even when you look at what the characters are wearing, you look at that and go, that's very much of the 80s. But if you look at Fawlty Towers or Bottom or something, it's just kind of the hair maybe in some instances, but really the costumes, they make it a timeless thing, and, which I think is probably one of the reasons why, as we've said, Bottom really doesn't age badly at all.
I think so. I mean, I'm sure other people might disagree. I don't know how someone coming to it cold, having never seen Bottom, would actually receive the look of Bottom now. Like, you know, put aside the material and whatever, you know, some people go on and on about, oh, you can't do it now or whatever. I wonder what people would think just of the costumes based on Richie and Eddie. Do they look old-fashioned or do they look timeless?
In the couple of instances where I've seen those videos where you get someone who's never seen it, be it Americans watching Bottom or someone watching Bottom, whenever you watch it, I've never heard them go, oh man, this looks really old, or those clothes look really dated. The complaints, for want of a better word, are always, oh, that's not very PC.
It's too violent.
Yeah.
Too offensive.
Fuck off.
So I suppose, it's a costume point, I suppose. The blouses, just women wearing blouses around him needs to happen so that Richie's catchphrase.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. How could we do an episode on costumes and not mention smashing blouses?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, the smashing blouse you have on ages Richie's chat-up line. Because it was already old-fashioned when he's saying it in the 90s, isn't it? It's just not something you'd ever say to anyone if you were trying to actually chat them up.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much.
But the blouse, is it back in fashion?
Is that a blouse you've got on?
It's kind of, I always wear a blouse for the podcast, and you've never told me once that I'm wearing a smashing blouse, even though every single week I come wearing a very smashing blouse.
I mean,
it is kind of, yeah.
Have blouses ever really gone out of fashion? I just assumed that they're like the t-shirt or denim, that they've just always been there.
It's the equivalent of a shirt for a woman, isn't it?
Right.
That's essentially what it is, yeah.
But they feel more floaty and generally are quite floral, aren't they? So that ages them a little bit. But the word blouse feels old-fashioned, doesn't it? I feel like now a lot of women would just say shirt.
It feels like it should be alongside words like doily.
It's so old-fashioned. And when Eddie says, you know, calm down, you hysterical girls, blouse, that is that language of that, you know, it's just so old-fashioned and like ridiculous, isn't it, when you hear it in that context? Even more ludicrous when Richie's trying to chat people up using it.
Yeah, very deliberate choice, you know, that we've said before. They choose the comedic sounding words over the boring ones. And
Absolutely.
yeah, blouse, it's like it's so, for want of a better term, like it's so on purpose, you know, you wouldn't haphazardly mention a blouse or something. It's so specific.
The image it conjures up in your mind is of a ludicrously old-fashioned fuddy-duddy kind of thing. It's not the sort of thing that you compliment a lady on in the 90s or even before that. You know, what a lovely blouse you've got on. It's more what your granny's going to be wearing, isn't it?
Right, time for a quiz. First question. What does Richie wear?
Underpants.
Yeah.
Clothes.
Well done.
Shoes.
Yeah,
Face.
that's the end of this bit.
Have we got any particular favourite outfits that we've... You know, what is your favourite, Richie or Eddie or both?
My favourite
outfit?
is Richie's standard jeans, white shirt, pants, tie, the tie pin. It's nothing that special about it on paper, but to me, like, you know, if you were drawing him, that's what you'd draw him in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great, wonderful observations with the characters that are the supporting characters in Bottom that the costume designers use to kind of really build that world. But I suppose my favourites visually, even though it's absolutely not one of my favourite episodes, would be the Halloween costumes for Richie and Eddie. I think they're really visually striking and they've become quite iconic. Despite, as we said, only appearing in one episode, they've really almost come to define the show for the people whose favourite series is the third series, and that's not me. I think those costumes are really quite special.
Yeah, undoubtedly they're inked in the mind, aren't they? It's like Richie and Eddie, if you were wanting to have it on a t-shirt or anything like that, people would be, that's from Bottom. But I feel that way about their traditional costumes, like you say, Matt. You know, I feel like the glasses on Eddie and the brown suit and Rick in his tie and shirt and his oversized jeans. If we were to do a standout, just one-off one, it would be Richie as Kilroy, I think, just because of the ludicrous nature of that wig, and that entire moment is just absolutely brilliant. And I also just want to say, I do think Spudgum's mum is brilliant as a costume, and obviously Brenda the Ball Gazer. I think the costume department had a lot of fun with Bottom because the content's so much fun, isn't it? They're such outlandish characters that they had
it's all
create.
extreme and meant to be a bit grimy. Everything's meant to put you not at ease, if you know what I mean.
It's meant to unsettle you,
yes.
you mean, rather than put you at ease.
Yes.
And Lady Natasha has great tits in that dress.
Yeah, whoa. But we'll talk more about that probably in another theme, which will be coming up, the Dark and Gross Universe.
Yes, that's next week.
Oh, I bet you can't wait. Bet you can't fucking wait.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's edition of Talking Bottom. I hope you're enjoying these themed episodes as much as we are. It's all part of our research for writing the Talking Bottom book, which is available now through unbound.com. If you go on there and you search Talking Bottom, you can pledge and buy yourself a copy, or even a friend, and get their name in the back of it if you so wish. If you want to just give us any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us on 11maffickingparade@gmail.com, or you can find us on all of the social media apart from the likes of Snapchat, because that's far too down with the kids, at Talking Bottom. So Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.
Oh, should we do a TikTok of us
No.
dancing to the bottom theme with frying pans?
No.
All right.
If we make it to 200% backing, then maybe we will, to celebrate it, but
No.